I wasn't aware that BMI is nonprofit.
Yes.
So when they sue people over covering other artists' songs, not on physical recordings, but live performances, where does the money go?
When they sue people, whatever they find is whatever you're entitled to.
So the royalties actually go to the artist?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
see, I wasn't
They
aware.
have, you know, a big fat legal department.
Being like a part of the music industry itself for so long, and then being able to see like something like music piracy and like person-to-person file sharing, actually become something. What's your stance on it? Like, how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about
like file sharing, like music piracy?
Oh well, look, I think, like I said, it's far more advantageous to you, even as an artist, if you're only file sharing and you're getting at your music and you're reaping the rewards of file sharing, versus signing. The playing field is evened out. The majors had a lock on distribution, and you had to kowtow to a bunch of asshole manufacturers who gave you contracts that were so one-sided. It was so unfair. Now they come up with something called the 360 deal, which is that if they sign you, they want to not only share in your record royalties, but they also want to share in what you earn on live concerts and merchandising. I mean, what a ripoff! What a ripoff! It's because then they're losing out on to file sharing. So they want to make it up somehow. So they say it's a 360 deal. Now, what were you smiling about?
I just think that the 360 deal is
it's outrageous.
It's a clusterfuck. Excuse me for saying that, but
I think it's outrageous.
Yeah, it's madness. Yeah.
But they'll give you a chunk of money to sign with them, and hope that you bypass the 360 deal within your contract, because money talks. And I don't know, what has prompted certain people to buy into that. Either they're desperate or they're stupid.
But don't you think, with that, because they're so desperate, it gives the artists much more power to control their own careers? I mean, they don't have to, sign up with that. I mean, they have much more power to do things themselves.
So you think that a 360 deal makes it?
No, I'm saying that they're doing that because the record labels are desperate, because they're losing so much money to illegal downloading.
Exactly.
But artists these days have so much more power over their own careers to do it themselves. I mean, it's silly to sign up with a
They don't have
like
to
that.
buy into that.
Yeah.
But there's one stickler to the whole thing. Yes, you can get your music out to the world on the internet, but to get noticed, how many people are pushing their things now out on the internet? And still, the majors have a lock on it because they have the money to market. So that's why I say you got to work on it 24/7, and you got to pound away at it. And if you're a band, you got to hit the road, and you got to live in a van, and you got to some days not eat, and you got to suffer. And you got to go back to these locations that you played in front of 14 people the first time, and the second time hopefully play in front of 26 people, and then go back and hopefully play in front of 39 people. It's pounding. And if you believe and are prepared to do that, you might get some reward out of it in time. But there are no overnight sensations. It's very rare. It'll take time. But if you believe in your music and you persevere, you can get a good result from it.
Since you just mentioned that about not having any overnight sensations, what do you think about these corporate artists that come out seemingly out of nowhere, like the Justin Biebers and whatever.
I don't like it.
I mean, they're fabricated for the most part.
Fabricated, right? Exactly.
Which in turn takes away from everybody else.
Yeah, following a formula.
Yeah.
You know, which is corny and not half as good as, you know, the great majority of the indie acts that are making music that you'll hear on satellite radio, you know, that are part of a new generation, actually. You know, each generation comes forth with another take on the scene, you know, on the culture, on the politics.
What do you think the best bang for your buck in marketing right now is?
The best bet for
your marketing dollar. If you're trying to market a record, if you're trying to market a band, what do you think the best thing to put your money into? Because a lot of these bands don't have a lot of money to spend, so if they're going to spend their money, what should they be spending it on?
It's hard to say. I think, you know, I guess, you know, some advertising, some TV, YouTube. I think anybody that is making music has to accompany it with videos constantly. And like I say, building up your fan base is very important. But taking advantage of YouTube, you know, it's like we said earlier, that YouTube is perhaps today's MTV, and then some. So that's it. And you could make videos, you know, for next to nothing.
Right.
You don't have to have you know, terrific, glorious productions. In fact, there's something to be said for some of the simpler, more direct, honest productions. So that's where I put marketing money.
I guess the main difference for me, anyway, between YouTube and something like MTV is, like, with MTV, you're fed the videos. If you want to watch, you know, a music video, you have to watch the one that's on. With YouTube, you have an infinite amount of possibilities. Like, within the confines of YouTube, how do you actually get noticed? You know, like,
how do you get noticed?
Yeah, like on the internet. Or I guess the internet in general. How do you get noticed on the internet?
You pound away at it. You build the fan base first and foremost.
Right.
And then you cater to them. You keep sending them a free song or two from time to time occasionally. But YouTube is far more honest, I would say, than MTV ever was.
Absolutely.
MTV was, you know, was owned by the record companies. But YouTube, you know, you can get anything on YouTube, and then you got to promote it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's like kind of the great thing about YouTube, but also the problem, because everything is on YouTube, you know, but
yeah,
it's just you got to find it. That's the thing. And
yeah, well, that's the same issue about, you know, where the majors have a lock because they have the marketing money. They can throw full page ads here or there, or advertise on television, or give away whatever. But, you know, to get noticed on limited, non-existent budgets is very difficult.
Right.
The first big change that happened to music and maybe the industry before technology later was in the 80s when the corporatization took over. I think Sony was the first one. They bought Columbia or CBS, and then, you know, they all just sucked up all the labels into these four giants, and they started running things like, you know, corporation were bottom line, and, you know, it was just all the creativity was sucked out of it, and it was about numbers. And wasn't that the beginning of the real sort of
I would say so, yeah.
You know,
in the 80s, corporate rock, so corny, so you know, out of touch. I mean, marketers who only know as much about the music as the record number. You know, it's number X, you know, Y23. That's what they know. They don't go home and listen to it and relate to it, and well, some do. You know, that would be unfair of me to say that all are disconnected. That's not true. Some do, but too many don't.
last month at a festival, I got to see Suicide perform their first album from start to finish.
Oh, right.
It was
Yeah,
just
well,
incredible.
that was upstate New York, right?
Well,
Was
where
it?
I saw it was in Asheville, North Carolina at the Moog Fest.
Oh,
And it was really good. I wonder if you could talk about the creation of that album, and specifically if you thought about asking Alan to sort of temper or eliminate the shrieks and whoops that he did on the centerpiece track, Frankie Teardrop,
well,
to make it more commercial.
that seems to be a mood or a move these days by different artists to perform their most famous album in total. And now you say you saw them in Nashville?
No, Asheville, North
Oh,
Carolina.
Asheville. Oh, right. Was that the Moog Festival?
It was.
Yeah. How did they go over?
It was great.
They went over well?
attended, yeah, and it was a rapturous crowd. They had the
Right.
palm of their hand.
Well, you know, they are one of the pioneers of electronica. Although, you know, it took 30 years for that to be recognized. And there's an example of a group that are probably more popular now, you know, even on a limited basis than they ever were in their careers. You know, and it took 30 years. I mean, they always made a living at it. You know, they were always able to go to Europe, which was where their market was. You know, in many respects, I feel that, you know, the Europeans are a lot hipper. They really are. I mean, it's a sad state here in America.
We're all familiar with the bands that you've worked with in the past and how awesome everything that you helped put out was. I was wondering if there's a certain band now, a certain new band that has caught your attention or that has impressed you more than the
Yeah,
others.
there is actually. There is a band called Lola Dutronic. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they're a duo also, of which one member of the group lives up in Toronto and the other member lives in Berlin. The singer, the female vocalist, lives in Berlin. He creates the music, transports it to her. She throws her vocals on in her home studio, sends it back, he polishes it. And they're sort of like loungy dance. In fact, I issued two digital EPs fairly recently. One was called Whisper. That was a song that Martin Rev of Suicide wrote, that 5 different producers did their versions of it. And that was called Musique, that EP. And then this new one that I've just issued is called New York Stories, which has a Blondie song, a Suicide song, a Johnny Thunders song, a Martin Rev song, and a song that was the first single called Kids Just Want to Dance by The Fast out of New York.
I saw
Right.
that. You sent me the link to that.
Right. I sent that to you, right?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did.
Oh,
I'm
good.
going to look into that more now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, there's a group that, you know, caught my ear. Now, there's another group that I worked with years back, the Fleshtones, who persevered. And, you know, not that long ago, a book called Sweat about their career was written, 400 pages, which is a heck of a, you know, rock and roll read. And then a movie called Pardon Us for Living, but the Graveyard is Full. I think that was what it was called, something like that. That's for free, that's online. You know, they couldn't get distribution for it. You know, although it's very good and should be distributed. But so the movie makers decided, hey, let's just give it away. And it's online if you want to go pursue it.
I will.
So, okay, next question. Question? But come up so I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I was wondering what your take on bands asking, basically pay your own price for their digital releases, where most famously the band Radiohead came up with, we'll give you an album in rainbows. And on our website, you can download it, and there's a little form that allows you to pay whatever price you desire to pay them.
I think that was brilliant.
It was.
Yeah.
It put the music out there, and they recently released information showing that about 50% people went with the free route. They just put 0, got the album. But it's also it keeps charting every once in a while. Like it keeps showing up just slightly like among. I forget the name of the company that does the actual metric on the web downloads and stuff, because there's so many places it's almost impossible to keep track of who's listening to what anymore. But it shows that like there was a huge spike of traffic for that though. Like other bands have done it as well, but those were like the first major bands that really went with that model. I just want to know what your opinion on that was.
Well, my opinion is that that was a brilliant marketing move on their part to say, you name it, and I'll accept it. And I mean, some artists feel, I think Lady Gaga in particular, that you could just as easily give your music away for free, what you've recorded, because the real money is in your personal appearances. Now, for someone like her, you know what kind of money she makes in live performance? How about try on $250,000 just for one show, one night, which she could knock off, or maybe even more than that in some cases, maybe $500,000. So, I mean, what's the big deal, you know, in collecting a royalty through a record company quarterly or twice a year, which could come to $1 million, but you could knock that out in 2 shows, you know, just like that, you know.
So the money really isn't in
the money is in personal appearances, and the money is in publishing.
It is, but if it's in publishing and you're giving away the recording, so that's just like an act of promotion where you just give a few pieces and maybe it will intrigue enough people to come to the live shows or buy the merchandise.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's still a load of merchandise at, you know, someone like a Lady Gaga show.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Or a Radiohead show.
For smaller acts, though, what would that be?
Well, for smaller acts, I would also sell my wares. Maybe you wouldn't be able to manufacture all the wares that a big act would be selling, but you could sell some T-shirts, and you could press up some small copies of CDs or EPs or whatever, or you could just give out information about yourself. You know, just try to excite people and get them for your fan base, which you hope to build.
You draw them into the operation, so to speak. Like the music's just like the siren song that pulls them into the entire aesthetic that like you create.
Just making the record is not enough. You know, promoting it, promotion.
Okay.
Working at it, beating the bushes, persevering. That's where it's at. I wanted to mention that I believe that there's a fine line between abstract and accessibility in making music and writing music and recording music, especially today. You just can't follow the old methods of, you know, Chuck Berry or Rolling Stones, you know, if you're doing rock. You can't follow those earlier forms. You got to create new forms, new beats, and in that respect, abstract, but accessibility, because that is what I've always looked for.
Do you still think that there's room for producers to work on albums with record labels not fronting money for production, with, you know, independent bands trying to do their own records at
well, nothing for nothing. I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything for nothing.
Right.
But you could do something with very little. And I think if you find talent that is competitive and world entry, you could make a recording with them and it'll be heard at the majors. If it's too abstract, they really don't want to know about it.
Right.
But if it's fresh, you might have a shot to get it placed. But if not at the majors, there's a world of indies out there that are really better to go to.
So as a producer, do you latch onto a band and try to help them with their career, or do you work doing freelance work and hopefully find a situation that works out best for you?
Well, I found years back that the kind of artists that I was interested in were ahead of the game. So it was like useless for me to go to the majors to try to get it placed because they were on a different page than I was. So then I formed my own label.
Right.
Yeah, and Red Star Records, and I started releasing my own records. And that's, if you can pull that off, and be an indie, that's something to really look forward to. But if you can't pull it off and form your own label, go take a look at, through Billboard's Buyer's Guide, who will list all the indies that are out there, and go to them, and they'll hear it if it's fresh, and you'll kind of stumble through a whole bunch of them, separate the wheat from the chaff, and you'll eventually settle on somebody who sees what you see.
We're all familiar with the success and popularity of the acts that you've worked with. I was wondering if maybe you had any unsung heroes that didn't go as far as you felt they deserved to, that we might not know about? Things that people that didn't turn out to be their
I think they were
Bonnie.
all on Suicide were unsung, and the Dolls were unsung, and Richard Hell, and the Flesh Tones, and the Real Kids. They were all, interesting, good artists, and they went, to a place of popularity, and they can still work to this day, and make a decent living out of it. I don't think any of them are getting rich. Oh no, I don't know about that. The Dolls now are working internationally and making a lot of money, and in places like South America and Japan, and Australia. They're traveling the world.
I feel like a lot of the major involvement today is so fickle. People will be obsessed with an artist, and then the next year it's just like they're disposable.
Formulaic garbage.
It's the timeless ones, the real ones that you hold on
But
to.
the real ones, they surface. There's a group here in Roanoke that I heard a demo of this at one point that I thought had a lot of potential. The Young Sinclairs.
Oh yeah. I carry their records. They actually just broke up.
Yeah, they had some decency.
They didn't break up. They kind of just accomplished what they set out to do, because they put out 6 albums and they got signed to Kinder Court and they toured with Brian Jonestown Massacre, and they're all in so many different bands that they kind of felt like they had done what they set out to do, and now they're all doing their own separate projects. So it wasn't like a sad breaking up, but it is sad that they won't be playing here anymore, because I used to love to have them perform here.
So they were one of the more popular bands here in town?
They were really popular here in town, and they were also getting exposure. I remember looking them up once to try to find an ad picture for one of the shows they were playing here, and I saw an article I couldn't read because it was Swedish, but it was the only words I understood out of the whole article were Young Sinclairs and sexy, and everything else was Swedish.
How important do you think the LP is as opposed to the single for artistic expression? Do you think it's better to focus on the whole body of work as the LP, or should
when you become known, focus on the whole body of work, but otherwise go song, 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 song. Yeah.
Just build your
Because maybe one
fan
of those will catch on somewhere, and then who knows what happens. Maybe the doors open, and maybe they open at indies. Indies are not necessarily boutiques.
Right.
There are indies that sell lots of records. My label, I guess I have to say it was a boutique label, because I wasn't capable of selling volumes of records. But I didn't have to sell volumes of records. I mean, if you sell 40, 50, 60, 70,000 records at a major label, they drop you. You didn't sell enough. If I sold 40, 50, 60,000 records at Red Star, I would be, my eyes would open, I'd be thrilled.
Being where you've been and you saw what you saw, like, you know, it's like we're talking like a few decades ago, and then like here it is now. Like I just I guess my question or is just basically like, you know, is it easier now? I mean, do you think that it was like I mean, you really had to like, and you still have to like fight against the grain, but like, do you, like, what if one was to be like, you know, they heard a band and like there was, that they could feel something about that, or you know, there's something they stood behind, like from where you are now and then where you were then, like what do you see is the differences? I guess my question is,
there's
like,
a world of difference in the technology, for one, and how music is distributed. That's, you know, the major difference. But one thing holds true today, which is called perseverance. Perseverance will always be a factor in the entertainment world, because everybody wants to be in the entertainment world, and there's just so much room on the ladder. So the biggest difference is technology and how music is distributed. You know, before it was, like I said earlier, you having to kowtow to people at record companies who controlled your future. But that doesn't exist, you know, exclusively. You know, maybe it exists to some who will play in that game, but I don't think that game, for the kind of music that I'm interested in anyway, you know, I'm not interested in the formulaic stuff.
But
I'm interested in people who are, you know, trying to express something and trying to say something a little bit fresh and maybe comment on things that are relevant to a generation, perhaps.